happy full moon in Gemini, devoted moon sisters. She is the child within you, this Gemini essence. She is bright and expansive. Gemini is open-minded. Gemini is the beginner's mind, where in the adepts or the professional's mind, there are very few possibilities. In the beginner's mind, there are infinite possibilities. Gemini is this essence of the curiosity that asks of that child, that asks why, and then you give the child an answer and they say, but why? And then you give another answer and they're like, but why? And that questioning of like, but I'm looking at this from a clear slate and it doesn't make sense. So tell me more. How much of that medicine do we need in our world right now as we are opening, shifting from one paradigm to the other? We are asking why? Why does it have to be like this? So it's been like this for 2,000 years, 1,000 years, this patriarchal society. That doesn't mean that's not how it was. That's how it was before. That doesn't mean that's how it has to be. So the medicine of the inner child is that which we call on when we are jaded. We are victims of being stuck in old paradigms, old limiting ways of thinking, stuck in just victim consciousness in general, being a victim of our reality. We bring in that medicine of why? Can I come at this with it from a new angle? Can I come at this in a playful way? Can I come at this from a place of optimism? Can I rethink what I have taken for granted? Can I look at things with new eyes? Can I be less serious and do something silly just because? It doesn't have to be a reason for it. Can I take off my clothes and run in the rain? Since we are here reclaiming the feminine archetypes, I feel so called to be clear about this connection between the inner child and our sensuality and sexuality. So many women find that we desire to express ourselves more sensually, to be more in tune sexually, to access that power, or to literally just be more fully in the moment, to be present, to be out of our mind and into our body. And I have a client recently who she has been working on inviting more sensuality into her experience and into particularly her experience with her beloved partner. And this week, it just came up. It was like, what does feel sensual? I was like, oh, my hair feels sensual. And so we went there. And so in session, we're kind of just like dragging our hair along our body and feeling that like a little child would be like, wow, look at this. This is so cool. It's so fascinating. It's so soft. It smells good. And we could like play and like drag it on our lover's body. And of course that could be really sexy, but it could also just be like, feels good. It feels good when we drag our hair. It feels good when we feel our hair on our skin, when we move it around, when we dance and it moves around, right? So for some of us, we have that thing with our hair. For others, it's other things. But the child is always holding the gateway towards greater sensual expression because she is this maiden, carries the codes of being alive and awake inside of her body and experiencing things without this lens of like, oh, hair is just to look good. It goes back like this, or my hair doesn't look good. I don't like my hair, or I'm not sexual, so I have to pretend with my partner or whatever. The root of our true unlocked sensuality is not something that gets unlocked in the bedroom. It is something that is the way we play with the world. It is the way we engage with the world. It is our willingness to be in this relationship of curiosity and exploration with our body and with other bodies and with the not just with bodies, right? With nature. How many of us had that feeling of pure unbridled freedom in nature, that communion with nature as little children, our inner child holds the pathway back to these innate feminine qualities, our own creativity, our own sensuality, our connection with nature. All of this lives in the archetype of the inner child. So I want to be clear. It's like what we're doing, if we were just like, okay, let's just talk about Gemini. Let me list. Bop, 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 bop. Okay, that's a different thing than what we're doing here, right? We're talking about feminine archetypes and how these arise and awaken through the zodiac, and how the zodiac is carrying all the pieces of our own wholeness. So some of the things, as we start getting deeper and deeper to the inner child stuff, it's like almost like we leave Gemini behind a little bit, but we'll always whip back around because Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is the planet of communication, of words. Gemini is loquacious. Gemini loves to talk. So I have such personal experience with this because I am a Sagittarius sun, and my former partner was a Gemini moon. And so much Gemini happening in her field. She was like super, super Gemini, so chatty. Like Gemini loves to chat, and Sagittarius loves to like go deep. So we were quite a pair because she would like keep me like uplifted in light and like just be like, oh, that's cool. Like, what's this? And blah, 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 blah. But eventually I would be like, oh my God, stop talking. Please, just stop. And then I would be over here like, yes, and the deeper significance of this is this and this, and then the philosophy of this, and then the stars said this. And she would be like, oh my God, yes. Tell me more. You're opening and awakening this archetype of my own wisdom keeper, who is Sagittarius, of course. These two being pairs, of course. But then eventually she would be like, can you just lighten up? Like, just chill. Like, let's just have some fun, actually. Stop making everything so deep and so serious. And this is the dichotomy, the duality, the dynamic between Sagittarius and Gemini, who are the divine lover pairs of this month. Now, when it's the new moon in Gemini, we just talk Gemini. We just go deep with Gemini. We go into like what goddesses are there. When it's the full moon in Gemini, remember, we are not just talking about Gemini moon. We are talking about the full moon in Gemini, which is always in contrast to the new moon in its complementary pair, which is Sagittarius. So again, in 6 months, we will have Gemini new moon. We'll be talking all about Gemini. But then we'll have Sagittarius full moon, and then we'll be talking about Gemini and Sagittarius together. So this is the cosmic symphony of the universe, our galaxy, that is, and this is just the way it works. Sagittarius and Gemini go together like yin and yang, like opposites attract. They are a polarity that attract and magnetize each other because they are opposites. Gemini is the eternal student. Gemini is curious. Gemini just wants to like talk about it. Gemini is very mental body. It is an air element mental body. Sagittarius is a fire sign. That is our spiritual body. Sagittarius is the teacher. Sagittarius, the words for Sagittarius are I see, as in I truly see. I see from the 10,000 foot vision, right? Like I see from a bird's eye vision. Gemini, the words are I think. And as much as we love our mental body, and we can just keep bowing down to our mental body, don't go anywhere without it. May it last as long as this physical body lasts. We all know it can be a little tricky, that mental body. It can lead us astray a little bit sometimes. And this is, in fact, where limiting habits and patterns live, inside of our mental body. Any of our stuff around I am not worthy, I am not good enough, I don't like my body, I am uncomfortable in these environments. These old ways of thinking, these are living in the mental body. So we have that Gemini essence that is so expansive and curious and seeking knowledge, right? And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, we have the Sagittarius that is like, yes, knowledge seeker, absolutely. But in the end, she's the wisdom keeper. She is the one who is looking at the knowledge, is taking in the knowledge, and then embodying it and offering it as a gift out. So Sagittarius is the teacher, Gemini is the student. They go hand in hand. They need each other. And in fact, they always are becoming each other because the best teachers are eternal students. And students who are in devotion will ultimately become teachers themselves and offer that back in service. I'm such a devotee to ecstatic dance, and I really believe that every woman should be ecstatic dancing regularly, whether she's alone or in community. It is truly the ritual of feminine expression. And so towards the end of the set, we were all like up on the stage, like in it, and towards the end of the set, this epic song came on, and I was loving it so hard, and so many of us on the dance floor, we were just like, what is going on? This is so good. It was like slowing us down, dropping us in towards the end. And then I happened to have a conversation with some women after, and one woman that I actually didn't know that well, but I got to know so much about her from this one conversation. She was like, yeah, that song towards the end, that was so inappropriate. Like, I felt so uncomfortable dancing to that. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, my Gemini curiosity was up, and I was like, oh, really? And then I was like, yeah, I really liked it because I love dancing like sexy by myself. And so it like activated those like memories. And I was just up there, on this stage, just like me and me and me dancing for me. And that's really what ecstatic dance is about. It's like, it's about you. It's not about looking a certain way or performing. And we just went into this conversation, and she's like, oh yeah, that I guess that's just my thing. And bless her so much. And it activated this memory within me of like, oh my God, I used to be like that. I used to feel really uncomfortable with any mention of sex, or like being in a group of people and there's like a sexy scene, or, you're like with your family and there's like a sexy scene in a movie or something. And it's like, this is so awkward. And since I've come deeper and deeper into my feminine awakening, I have discovered more and more like none of that triggers me at all. Because when we can't be playful with sensuality, when we can't be playful, even with sexuality, right? It's like what we're basically saying is we're saying that's bad, that's shameful, that belongs just in this very small part of our life, and over there, no one should talk about it, and no one should like enact any type of that in the public sphere. We're basically creating a porn culture. And this is what's, I think sometimes when we hear about or have people in our lives with porn addiction or sex addiction, it's like, it can be really like, oh, judgy on that. But the thing is, like, if we are disconnected from our playfulness in relation to our bodies, we are literally creating a culture that believes that playfulness with the body is actually over here, and it can only be over there, and it's something to not be looked at. And when we do that, we create so much shame to the point where it creates violence in our culture. It literally creates rape culture. It literally creates incest culture. So had to go deep there for a moment. I am a Sagittarius, but I wanted to make this connection between the feminine gifts of the child. Like the child is like full feminine in its early life. It is like full on feminine, no matter what gender, right? Like it's like full presence, full, like the mental body, the ego isn't developed yet. So it's like, even if it's, boys enacting like violent games when they're like super young, it's still like I am full on in my imagination. I am like in my experience, in my body. This is the energy of the inner child. Now, I know so many of us, I would say most women in my extended circles, like we tend to have either extensive experience with therapy or we're ongoingly in therapy. Yes, so important. And so much of the therapeutic approach, not just in like psychology, but just generally, can really focus a lot on childhood trauma. Now, let me say, childhood trauma, yes, it is the root of everything you have going on. So like, let's be clear about that. Yes, absolutely. This is where everything is coming from. Like our inner child was very sensitive and very open to this world that is very intense. And our parents were imperfect and this world was imperfect and we're still processing that. And that is what we're doing on a therapeutic journey. And let's be clear, when we talk about the Gemini, the archetype of the inner child, we want to be really connecting with like the beauty and the play and the fun and the innocence before things got super complicated. And for many of us, things got super complicated when we were in the womb, right? Like when we were super young children. But where was that freedom when you felt carefree of like running through a field? Like, did you ever have that experience as a child? Did you even have moments of that experience? That is what we're getting back to, because our inner child carries the essence of our joy. So we want to be in relationship with her and asking her, making dates with her, making play dates with her. What do you want to do? That's a good way to get back into your playfulness, get back into your embodiment, is to really make a conscious effort, just like you schedule therapy, just like you schedule your massage, just like you scheduled this video to watch it every new and full moon. For your therapeutics, schedule that play date with your little babe. She knows why you are here on this planet. She carries your soul codes so strongly and so deeply. She came directly from the cosmos into this world right after you chose your soul mission in this lifetime. This is why Gemini and Sagittarius live so close. So Sagittarius is that wise crone essence. She's like the elder essence. And Gemini is that baby essence. She's the beginning of the zodiac, right? And so the thing is that the crone, in her true wisdom, in her true preparation for ancestor, to be a good ancestor, she is the closest. When she's in her full wisdom, she's the closest to the child. And we can see that often if we have dementia, even moving us deeper towards the death portal. The epitome of wisdom is the beginner's mind, like the clear mind, unpatterned and free. And this is what we're trying to do in all of our spiritual practices, right? To get back to that beginner's mind that is actually the essence of wisdom. So may we never underestimate the wisdom of children. This child self that you were, she came into this life knowing why she was here and knowing that her joy, her expression, was her pathway to service. It is why she was here. Her joy is how she can give back. And the wise crone who looks back at all the drama of our lives that we got so wrapped up in, we're so concerned about all the shit and judging our body and all the work. And then, in our peak wisdom, if we really develop our wisdom as a crone, we look back and we're like, oh wow, none of that really mattered. Interesting. And that sense of like, wow, I've learned so much in this life. And what I've learned is I know nothing. This is the true wisdom. And this is the meeting of Sagittarius and Gemini coming together on this full moon. So now, when we get into goddesses here, we got to keep in mind we are working with the inner child. So we are working with fun and we are working with play. And we are, of course, always drawing in what is the relationship of fun and play to our relationship in our body, this superpower of our body that is innate as women, that we have been literally systematically trained out of to be instead in the mental body. So we gotta come into our goddesses of pussy flashing. Yes, I said pussy flashing. And let's just talk about the word pussy for a moment. So many things you can use, right? Yoni, vagina. I tend to use yoni because I love, I come from that Sanskrit yogic background, and I just love like the essence of like the beauty of that word, and it's so gentle. And can you not smile when you hear the word pussy? And it's just referencing a cat. It's just referencing kitty, so there's actually some play in taking back the word pussy. This is like a whole movement, right? If you haven't entered the pussy train, let me initiate you now, to share that pussy flashing or yoni flashing or vagina flashing or whatever it is that you prefer. This is actually a straight up thing in history. Like, there is a vast history of pussy flashing. It actually has a technical term that is anasyrma. Anasyrma, Anasyrma. It's a Greek word, and it is a reference to the history of this being a practice that literally was said to that we know that Egyptian women would flash their yonis to their fields to get them to grow. Of course, duh, the literal like root of fertility. And this continues up to the 20th century in parts of Europe. In Russia, there's an old legend that if you're being chased by a bear, all you have to do is flash your yoni and you'll be protected. And even the patriarchal Greeks said, if you wanted to stop a war, open those legs, woman. And then we have our first goddess, that is Sheila Nagig. So if you are not familiar with this amazing crone being who is the essence of play, so as we talk about the inner child, we're talking about like how silly to like flash your pussy and to claim and to let that be something that transforms the world. So let's talk about the goddess Amaterasu. She is one of the main goddesses in the Japanese paradigm. She is the sun goddess. And the story goes that she had a huge violation perpetrated upon her. She had a sexual violation from her own brother. So sad that these stories, these ancient stories, are infused with this violence. But it's actually important for us to call it out and to hear it and to speak it, because this is exactly why we're reclaiming the goddess, right? Reclaiming all the parts of ourselves so that the whole world then can embrace all parts of the feminine and the masculine. And so she tucked herself away in a cave to go into her therapeutic rehabilitation on her own. And of course, as the sun goddess, the earth began to die. The gods and goddesses were all panicking, waiting for her to come out, but no one could get her out until Ame no Uzume, the goddess of mirth and reverie, said, I got this. And she was a crone. She got all the gods to laugh until Amaterasu peeked out of the cave, and she's like, what's going on? Why is everyone laughing? And Ame no Uzume says, take a peek and see. And she flashes her yoni as she had at all the goddesses, and Amaterasu laughs so hard, and she feels so joyful that she is healed in her heart, and she comes back out into the world. The world is saved through pussy flashing. That is just one of many pieces of our history of the way that the yoni brings joy and life and play and fun to the world, and it doesn't have to be so serious. Let me show you her first, just so that you can be delighted by this image, which, of course, if this terrifies you, it's okay. We've been trained to be terrified of aging. We've been trained to be terrified of the yoni. We've been trained to be terrified of the feminine. So yeah, if this terrifies you, it's okay. That's normal. That's normal, actually. And it didn't used to be normal. And we're finding a different way. So these images actually appear from throughout the medieval period. I have seen them with my own eyes in Scotland and England over Christian churches. Yes, these figures appear over churches, over the entryway to churches as large figures. You can't make this shit up. There are over 127 in Ireland, 47 in England, 6 in Scotland, and 4 in Wales. And if you want to learn more about this, you can check out the book Sheila, Dark Goddess of Sacred Power. And it's funny because if you look this up on Wikipedia or like any search engine, it's like, we don't know what this means. Maybe it's a prohibition against sin. It's like, really? She's like joyful. She's totally joyful. She's literally opening up the cavern of fertility and pleasure and like rebirth. And she's like, hey, blessings. So this is actually, Sheila offers blessings through her yoni. And she's smiling. And she's got her saggy breasts, her crone self. And she is so fucking joyful. And this is the energy of the Gemini full moon. It is the inner child playing with the crone. It is the inner child meeting the wisdom keeper and coming together and liberating our body, mind, freedom, ourselves. If you ever doubt the importance of inner child, the importance is that old saying, happy wife, happy life. I love to repurpose that to say, happy inner child, happy life. Because if we're not in relationship with our inner child, she is literally running the show. Love the inner child, but just like the ego, we put her, so the ego goes in the passenger seat, right? The mind can go in the passenger seat, the soul in the driver's seat. But the inner child, she needs to be in the car because she's our child. She's a huge, important, like imperative part of remembering our soul's purpose. But she does need to be in the back in a car seat, right? Like she's safest in the car seat. But if we're not in relationship with our inner child, she might be driving the car. And this is why maybe we get so serious and we're working and we're like so into like our adult thing and we're just adulting. And then all of a sudden we have a fucking tantrum, right? Like we just like throw a tantrum or we turn it against ourselves as masochism, or we just eat the whole box of cookies or whatever it is. This is how our inner child is like crying to get let out. And again, yes, trauma healing with our inner child. Absolutely. Always, again and again and again. And like, just have fun. just like schedule time to have fun. If you're like me, so Sagittarius, Sagittarius can also be really jovial, but just my unique makeup is like, it's very easy for me to be serious. It's very easy for me to work. Maybe you wouldn't guess it by like these videos because I just like have so much fun when I'm doing them. But I have to schedule time on my calendar for play. I have to schedule time with my inner child. I have to schedule time with my friends. Like this is a discipline for me. It's like a discipline to step away from work. But without that, I literally get depressed because I'm like, oh, I'm doing my soul work. I'm serving all these people and it's so meaningful. But it's like, then life gets so dry and it just gets so brittle and we're just so alone and we're so disconnected from our bodies, right? So the inner child is here to call us home. So happy inner child, happy life. The benefits are joy to build this connection when we make space for her consciously. And finally, we want to get into the shadow maiden, the shadow inner child. It is the nice girl. Chances are, if you were raised anywhere, probably at this time on the planet, you were trained to be a nice girl. And actually, this also came up with a client yesterday. I love to just bring stories that are like alive from this week. So this came up with a client yesterday where she was saying she was such a joyful, jovial, popular, like little one. And then on the way to middle school, she started getting bullied, and her mom didn't stand up for her, didn't speak truth to like the children or the teachers or whatever. And she was like really left to fend on her own. And she said, yeah, but my mom's just like that. She would like, you know, and this woman loves her mom so much, who's passed now, but like really is like deeply loves, you know, really sees the gifts and the power of her mother. But she was like, that's just how she is. Like she wasn't going to make people feel uncomfortable. This is the shadow of the nice girl. And how many times in all the ways we've been trained to be pleasant and agreeable and satisfactory, and to put others first, and to default to an attitude of cheerful mildness. And niceness can really take us down the rabbit hole to where we really lose track of our own power and what we actually even want. We lose track of our own desires because we're pleasing other people. We're securing other people's comfort. And it really can dull our relationship to our own desire, to our body, to our emotions, to our aliveness, definitely to our creativity, definitely to our intuition, because it is literally a blocking of our own intuition. And it's a malnutrition to the soul of a woman, of a whole woman who knows what she wants, who knows who she is, who knows her value, who speaks her truth. Of course, Gemini rules the throat chakra, so speaking our truth. And my client's story really reminded me of my own childhood. I was definitely trained to be a nice girl too, and have only learned to be a kind woman. I want to really call out one of my teachers here, an herbalist, amazing herbalist, Asia Suler, who first drew my attention to this relationship between the nice girl versus the kind woman. You know, the nice girl doesn't speak up when she's sexually violated, right? The nice girl doesn't really want to do the thing, but she does the thing, right? And it reminded me of my own childhood that I've spoken of this before, but it's my mom put me in beauty pageants when I was like really, really young, like super, super young. And I remember as I got older, like I hated it so much. It was so mortifying. It was so terrifying to me to just go up on stage and be judged and like have like, it's like full makeup, like hair all like done and in like these ugly dresses, right? And go on stage and be judged. And I remember just like bawling in the bathroom, even being like up to like age 12, just like bawling in the bathroom. And my mom's like, it's okay, don't cry, you're gonna make your face puffy, like we're gonna get through this, you know. And like instead of actually showing up for me and my needs and like my desires, she just had me as her doll, right? Like bless her, I love her. And you know, she was working out her own kind woman thing, her own like women are valued by their presentation thing. And so our mothers, here go to mother wound, right? We're talking about the inner child. Our mothers that trained us to be like good girls because that was the way they were trained. And really, this was an adaptive mechanism. This is how our mothers survived. This is how our grandmothers survived. This is how women survived for thousands of years, by not rocking the boat. And we are at a new portal now. And we can go right back to that inner child to find what we really think about it, what we really want to say about it, what we really want to do about it. Because that inner child, she does not have a filter. She is all intuition. She is all creativity. She is all a believer in miracle. She knows that life is a miracle. Like she's literally looking at life like, you know, without the limitations that we've gained. And the prayer that really calls to me for this month, this Gemini full moon is, I am open to possibilities beyond my current experience. I am open to possibilities beyond my current experience. In other words, I am open to miracles. May you open to possibilities beyond your current experience this month. May you honor your inner child this month by scheduling play dates with her, asking her what she desires, going back to your childhood and remembering what was it that turned you on? What was it that you loved? What was it that you did back then that just lit you up? Whether it's, I used to love writing poetry when I was a little girl. It was, like 6, 7. I would just like had this little notebook and it's like, I'd write about my cats and I would just make like 4 sentences rhyming, and maybe you like to draw and color. Maybe you like to play. Maybe you like to like go out and just play in nature, right? Like now's the time, love. Gemini full moon, open to possibilities. Release the nice girl, stepping into the kind woman and the full wisdom of the child and the full wisdom of Gemini paired with Sagittarius, the student and the teacher, the I think and I see, the yin and the yang coming together to unite, to create more of a sense of wholeness inside of us. Blessings on your inner child, and maybe if you're feeling playful, you can give yourself a little pussy flash in the mirror. You can give your beloved a little pussy flash and see if that brings a smile or some playfulness. And happy full moon, inner child being, young maiden.